Got a Pt.3, what do you get? Another day warmer and deeper in debt. Well, St. Peter, don't call me, 'cause I ain't free. I owe my soul to PG&E.
Let's all go inside and sign up to speak inside the Public Utilities Commission. Let our voices be heard. Let's take back the light, take back the mic. This is our voice, this is our time.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is William Marr. My company is William Marr Design, and I'm just speaking on behalf of small business people. And as a small business person, I actually provide services to PG&E. We trust that you will make the right decision for the people and all the people of the state of California. But as a small business provider of PG&E, we certainly hope we'll make a decision that maintains PG&E as a viable and certainly good working corporate partner of the community. It's important because as PG&E has hundreds, thousands of small business providers basically committed to providing local employment. And that's, as we work for PG&E, we provide to our subcontractors and their subcontractors jobs, and that's equates, as that rolls down like a pyramid, actually it rolls down to thousands of jobs. And as small businesses, as opposed to large corporation providers to the PG&E, we are basically providing local jobs, and basically our commitment is to provide local jobs. And as a design firm that actually participates in the company's supplier diversity development program, as well as their community outreach programs, and also provides it to other major corporations here in the city because we're a financial district firm. We can pretty much testify that PG&E is actually better than a lot of the larger corporations in this area in that respect. They're excellent in terms of diversity development and in terms of certain community outreaches like the Solar Schools program, the Richard Clark Environmental Awards, the Milky Community Service Program, things like that are excellent. And what I'm trying to say is, I know there's a lot of issues, but you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, there's good things and bad things, and the corporation has done some very good things for the community. And as I say, their outreach has, particularly in their diversity development programs, has been very good. And I personally have been involved in that, and actually hadn't been for the Public Utility Commissions as well as PG&E, I would have never applied for certification as a minority vendor. It was actually the PG&E that encouraged me to do that. So as I say, I hope the decisions will be made to continue PG&E as a good corporate neighbor and participant within our community. I know everyone's a boomie now, but you know that's from our standpoint as a small businessman. That's our standpoint.
Well, they can't do that and sell electricity
at
the price.
Good evening, Commissioner Allen Simon and Judge Wong. Thank you for taking the time to hear us tonight. My name is Katie O'Neill Brown, and I wanted to remind you guys in your consideration of the general rate case, please keep in mind that we are in a market already dominated by multinational corporations and a poor economy. We as customers all know that with fewer choices and with the elimination of customer choice, we will have to pay higher prices. That's true for any commodity. Prop 16 will lock in the already multi-billion-dollar monopoly PG&E into the California Constitution, restricting the ability of electricity consumers to buy from anyone except for-profit monopolies and guaranteeing rate increases for all of us. I wanted to address, I have two specific questions actually. One is with regards to, with Proposition 16, it would create within the 48 existing munis now that every new connection for a home buyer and small business owner be subject to an election requiring approval of 2/3 vote. That you guys please take into consideration that we're already in a bad economy. This will actually affect business. It will affect the real estate market. It will affect small businesses. It's something that has not been talked about, but it will affect them. And a lot of small businesses and homeowners already prefer to go with and have the choice a public utility company as opposed to private. They should have that choice stay open without having to have a 2/3 vote. The second one is PG&E has stated that the shareholders are paying for the $44 million political campaign they have launched. for the California Constitutional Amendment, Prop 16. We all know that PG&E is the only business in providing electricity, and that the CPUC determines what PG&E's cost of capital should be in order to provide for the investment in needed infrastructure. But it sure does not set that rate at a level calculated to create the $44 million additional fund for sole purposes of politically sponsored adventures like Proposition 16. I feel that it should be illegal to take ratepayers' money and use it politically against the ratepayers themselves. And my last question is in addressing PG&E is trying to avoid the seismic review for their Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. That you guys please make sure that that does not get avoided. I just returned from the South. I was in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama with regards to the British petroleum spill. And it was lack and oversight, little slips, that if we had regulated them properly, we could have avoided something like this. So please, I would like to just state, please take into consideration making sure that PG&E does not avoid that seismic review. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Chris Longmay, followed by Rachel Fessenden.
Hi, my name is Crit Longmaid. Was not misspelled. I wasn't expecting to speak this evening. I was expecting to listen. But the reason why I'm here, and I don't believe I'm going to be speaking so eloquently as so many of you have previous to me, but I would like to start by saying thank you for listening. I think this is really important. I don't know what weight it really carries, but I think this process is important. And I appreciate your time. The way I see it, it's really difficult, and I know you asked about to emphasize the rate change and focus on the rate change. I think it's very difficult to not talk about Prop 16, simply because there's a correlation. To me, this is about an all-out assault on renewable energy. And I have, to some degree, respect for PG&E with their energy efficiency. They've gone to lengths with their energy efficiency, and they've made, I don't think they're quite 20%, but renewables. But the point is, they're mandated by the CPUC. And if it weren't for that, they wouldn't be doing that. I mean, it's very obvious. They're a corporation, and we can expect their interest is solely in the shareholders. The problem is, there's a much bigger problem that's facing the state of California and the entire globe, and it's global warming. If we allow PG&E to shut down this, to pass Prop 16, if this passes, we are not going to reach the targets that are absolutely essential for the future of our children. And I think there's a correlation with rate paying, because this is, I'm astounded at what PG&E is doing. I just, the arrogance that's an understatement. But again, it's not about what they're doing. It's corporate greed, and we all know what that is. It's what you're doing. You know, I would urge you to put your foot down. It's time to say enough is enough, because we're headed for the edge of the cliff. And if people don't wake up and we don't get on target with partnering, you know, I wish PG&E had partnered with CCAs and said, what can we do to make this happen, and saw a greater good for all of us. But they're incapable of doing that because they're so short-sighted. So I encourage you to take a longer vision and really understand the importance of this, how critical the defeat of Prop 16 is, as well as this ratepayer hike, because it's approving corporate greed, and it's going to impact human beings, people, Californians. And if I know small business talked about the pluses and the benefits and what they experience through PG&E, but I guarantee you that the small businesses are going to be hurt. Low income and small businesses are going to be hurt severely by such a rate increase. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Rachel Fessenden, followed by Craig Files.
Good evening. Thank you for opening to the public comments. I'd like to fit myself into the patchwork. Many people have touched on things that I wanted to say, such as the economy. This is a terrible time for PG&E to raise rates. To think about all the people who are struggling right now to pay their PG&E bills. What's it going to be like at the end of this rate hike period, beginning in 2011? And also, I guess all of us can't help touching on the other issues such as smart meters and Prop 16 because we see how PG&E is using their finances right now. How does that speak about what they would do with a new rate increase of $4 billion if they can spend $44 million on this election? Is their rate actually already too high? Especially, when consumers have to struggle so hard to pay their rates. I don't really see PG&E struggling that hard. I think you guys, the PUC has an important function. We can't directly stop PG&E from raising rates. You have to be our voice. And so we need to let you know how important this is. There are some issues with the whole regulated utility monopoly model. That there's so little competition already, and PG&E is trying to strangle the rest of it with Prop 16 by shutting out CCAs and municipal power. So we need you guys to, be the regulator, be constructive, make sure that you hold PG&E accountable for its actions, even the recent actions in Marin and other actions, as so many speakers have mentioned. And by all means, look at this rate hike in that context, because this doesn't happen in a vacuum, And $4 billion is totally outrageous. I think you should reject both the general rate hike and the specific one that would charge different rates for power distribution for CCAs. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Craig Files, followed by Sudie Skull. Is Mr. Files in the room? Sudie Skull. And she will be followed by Grace Briones.
Hi there, Commissioners. I can tell seriously how attentively you're listening to us, and I really appreciate that, because I think every person here has said something really, really important. I want to bring up something from the past, because I think, honestly, PG&E has had a history of somewhat criminal behavior in order to reap more profits. And we all know the movie Aaron Brockovich and how they tried to sell hexane chromium as the same thing as the health food store chromium that people bought to become healthy. And then she defeated PG&E then. And then I know the lawyer David Peskin, who prosecuted PG&E again when they wanted to build a nuclear plant in Bodega Bay on the San Andreas Fault. We now have the third huge thing going on, and that's with the smart meter. And guess what? They're pulling it off. They've admitted, you admitted, or they admitted to you before the state legislature with Senator Flores' bill, that they never independently tested this smart meter. There have been at least 50,000 malfunctioning meters. This was of 10 days ago. Meanwhile, there's a huge population. In fact, according to Health Magazine, there are 35% of the population is electromagnetically sensitive, and I am one of those. They put in 2 smart meters on my house because I was dividing my house with an apartment. I had a lifeline on my electrical because at one point I was on oxygen. I was that sick. You would think they would have contacted me. For a month, I was so sick. I thought I was in some huge midlife crisis. I was so depressed. I had suicidal ideation. I was anxious with heart palpitation. I was vomiting, nauseousness, chronic migraine, insomnia. I was running electricity through my body, tingling, and all my extremities, my teeth felt pressure. The list goes on. I would get near the smart meter itself and I couldn't stop whimpering or crying. I had been sort of somehow misled that a smart meter was a little black box. I had no black box, so I didn't think it was a smart meter. I thought it had something to do with the electrical work. And then I found out it was a smart meter. And PG&E was very accommodating. I mean, literally, they removed it. They saw that I had pretty serious symptoms, and I do. But as they were removing it, they then informed me that, guess what? I would be getting a gas meter, and I would be getting my electric meters put back on within the next period of time. That this was a mandatory program. There was no opt-out. Okay? And, you know, I, like a lot of people, were desperate. We don't know where we're going to live. We're basically refugees in our own country. And again, PG&E is doing this to make a profit. And I know it's partially mandated by the national government, and the government hasn't come to terms with the health effects that are starting to accumulate against microwave RF radiation. I want to remind you that the EPA in 1990 cited electromagnetic fields as a carcinogen, and then the utility companies and the telecom and the military bullied them out of it. We need to be protected. You need to be our guardians, and I don't understand why you've relinquished your power. What's going on? We can say you're as bad as PG&E and you're complicit, but I'd like to think that maybe it's something different. I don't know what's going on, because every one of the people I've talked to at your agency couldn't be nicer and more concerned, and I see you listening to me now. And so I beg you to be guardians, to reclaim your power and protect us. We need you. And this issue is not going to go away. There's going to be huge, huge ramifications. There's no reason that you should not have a moratorium to stop this smart meter now and have it independently tested. They are planning, the official line is to put them in July. I've talked to the meter man. They are starting in June. That's in a matter of days. I don't know how long I can live in my house. And there are many people that aren't even here today because guess what? They're looking for another place to live, such as Berkeley, that has them practically all complete. So they're trying to find some temporary place in Marin, let's say. So please help us, okay? Really, use your hearts and your souls and help, okay? Thanks so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Grace Briones, followed by Al Weinrob.
Grace had to go.
Okay. Is Mr. Weinrob here? And he'll be followed by somebody who put down orbit or orgit and some numbers.
Commissioner Simon and Mr. Wong, thank you very much. We must be toward the end of this because I think I spoke about the last 2 months ago in March 17th when there was a discussion here about Prop 16. So I think people have spoken very, very eloquently, actually, about the issues. I think the only thing that I can add is just a little different perspective, slightly, which is, you know, things aren't usually what they seem to be. So if you look at the TV and you see these ads about Prop 16, the taxpayer's right to vote, we all know that it's not what it really seems to be. I was in the dentist's office a couple of weeks ago, and I talked to the receptionist. They heard about Prop 16, and they did, and they all had this mistaken notion that it was about, you know, taxpayers' right to vote. The CP, this rate increase and the discussion around the rate increase is not what it seems to be. It seems to be a controversy about whether PG&E should have more money and charge higher rates and whatnot. But I think in reality, and I think people have testified to this, it's really a trial. There's a trial going on here. The CPUC is on trial. It doesn't seem like it, but all this testimony here is really a trial about the CPUC. And various people have said at some length, issue after issue after issue, where the regulators of the independently the investor-owned utilities have gotten their way, even though the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, has been there to protect the public. So PG&E is a private corporation, and it's very hard for us as citizens to, to influence what they do. But the California Public Utilities Commission is a public institution that is directly answers to the public. It's not easy, but the CPUC is actually on trial here, now, at this time. So you have the choice. You can be guilty or you can be innocent. And the testimony so far points to a lot of guilt in what's been going on. But there is an opportunity to try to do the right thing. But if you don't do the right thing, everybody understands it in a way that probably didn't happen quite so obviously before. Prop 16 and the smart meters and everything that's going on has shined a light on the CPUC that's much brighter than the light that's been there before. And people who had no idea what the CPUC is and is supposed to do are now quite aware of it, mostly because of its failures. So I just want to leave you with that thought, just to look at things a little bit different, that all this stuff that looks like a rate increase is really a trial, and it's the CPUC that's on trial.
Thank you. The next speaker is, it looks like Orbit, followed by Maya Kane.
Hi, all. Don't call me Orbit for nothing. It's something about perspective. I have a lot of hard times to where I learned a lot about disclosure. The guy over here talk about full disclosure and in a timely manner so people could review these information so they might be able to raise issues they don't know about because you haven't been told. That's partial. Impartial is when we get all the disclosure at an appropriate time to prepare for that hearing, to have a fair hearing. Note 66 is the Fifth Amendment. It talks about adequate notice. And the no surprise doctrine, that's rule number 1 of civil procedure. It should be no surprise to anybody in authority that has to make any judicial decisions that if they see, it walks like a duck, it talks, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. If you have a utility, or you want to say a monopolist corporate entity, and the Public Utilities Commission sees something going on there that characterizes a corrupt organization, the Little RICO Act of 1970, racketeering, influence, and corrupt organization. These organizations, it's kind of like hand in hand with antitrust issues, where defeating competition is an antitrust issue, is the violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. How can it supersede a law that has been set into place, an act that's been set into place to prevent these kind of things? How can it supersede that act, this Sherman Antitrust Act? And how can anybody in these corporate entities go unpunished for what they're doing? Who's going to make these people answer for what they're doing? I have been a victim of false arrest through the criminal justice system, and I learned a lot about different parts of the justice system. And to this day, I noticed one of the common things is that they don't want to give you disclosure in anything, whether it's criminal justice or public utilities or aggressive billing. There was different issues I noticed. It's a patterned activity. It's one of the words they used in the RICO Act, patterned activities. Some of the similar patterned activities is the full disclosure. So people don't have that information in a timely manner. It's partial information, and that's not right. We need the sunshine in everywhere. And, I'm glad you have this for the public. This is good for us to speak out. I'm thankful that we got this much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker is Maya Kane, followed by Colin Miller.
I spoke earlier this afternoon. I'd like to give my time to Alex Hendricks. Thank you.
I'm going to be very brief because I spoke already. When Maya first asked me if I would take her time, I said no because people are waiting and you asked me to be brief. But I'm going to be very brief. There's just a couple other things maybe to add. One of them is I'd like to follow up on something someone mentioned earlier, because it was this person who was courageous to speak as in the minority here, with a different point of view, supporting PG&E and so on, and how good it is for local business. And I was glad someone else pointed out that these kinds of rate increases, not only the proposed ones, but the ones that have already been put into place, whether it's for smart meters, which a lot more money we're paying for that, and all these others are increase the rates for small businesses as well, and then they have trouble making a go of it, and they have to lay people off or go out of business. And it's not a one-way street. And if you have possibility of CCAs that can be effective competing businesses, they can employ local people as well. So any kind of company can be argued that defense contractors provide jobs. I've been hearing that most of my life. You could say that about any company, the jobs thing. But the question is, how is money being spent to provide what kind of jobs for whom? And especially when there's a monopoly that's taking our money because we don't have any alternatives, I think we need to look at the wider perspective. Another thing I wanted to mention is someone mentioned earlier about the so-called independent consultant that CPUC chose out of Texas to evaluate the billing issue, the billing overcharges perhaps. And then when the information came out that this company has a long-standing relationship of doing consulting work for PG&E and undoubtedly would like to get more business from them in the future, they've even done consulting on smart meter issues for PG&E. I don't know that I would, of course they'll say, well, it's got nothing to do with it, we'll be totally unbiased. But there's certainly the appearance of conflict of interest there. And I think that was, I don't know if the CPUC really knew about that when they chose that organization, but I think that was really a bad choice. I would like to see, and I think there are many people here and elsewhere who would like to see a moratorium placed on both the deployment of further smart meters as well as the operation of those already in place. And until a couple of independent studies are done, both for possible health damage, as has been mentioned, also for security vulnerabilities. I know that there have been several companies that actually there was one that was hired by, this was in a lot of the newspapers and magazines, 5 of the major utilities, I don't know if in this state or elsewhere, hired them to do a study. They're a major cybersecurity firm, very well respected, to check out smart meters. They checked out 5 different brands of smart meters and found that all of them were very vulnerable to hacking, to all kinds of problems that could be caused with that. I think, what's happened, and they then released, in general, they couldn't say which companies that was done for, but they released that information publicly. What has the CPUC done to investigate that further? CPUC is allowing them to put in all these meters everywhere, and that we're paying for. And just on that level of privacy and security, what risks are we being exposed to? And these studies have been done, but it's as though that never happened. It doesn't exist. And I would like to see the CPC ordering independent consultation about that, but I'd like to see it be done by an organization that you've checked on and make sure it is truly independent, and not someone who may be wanting some more contracts from PG&E. There's no credibility there. Thank you very much.
And a moratorium while that happens.
If you want to speak, you need to sign up, ma'am, and you've already spoken. Thank you.
But I would agree with that. The moratorium in the meantime, as well as the opportunity for individuals to opt out. Thank you.
You gotta be 16, or what do you get? Another day warmer and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I ain't free. I owe my soul